Hello, my friends. As a result of yesterday's negotiations, some unpleasant details have emerged. Reports indicate that an agreement has taken effect for a 30-day ceasefire concerning energy infrastructure and free navigation in the Black Sea. Russia and the US have agreed on a list of facilities that fall under this temporary strike ban on energy infrastructure. These include oil refineries, oil and gas pipelines, storage facilities, including pumping stations, power generation and transmission infrastructure, such as power plants, substations, transformers, and distribution centers, nuclear power plants, and hydroelectric dam stations. The moratorium will be in effect for 30 days starting March 18 and can be extended by mutual agreement. If one side violates the agreement, the other party will be released from its obligations to comply with it. However, the issue is that Ukraine is not currently targeting Russian energy infrastructure. Meanwhile, Russia continues to intensely shell Ukrainian territory. Just yesterday, reports confirmed another massive drone attack on Kryvyi Rih. So, while Russia claims to be targeting military facilities, they are still bombing civilian cities. There were also reports of explosions near the Dnipropetrovsk region. Additionally, new information has surfaced regarding the Kremlin's demands. The Kremlin has released a statement following negotiations with the US in Riyadh, declaring that the ceasefire in the Black Sea will only take effect if certain sanctions on Russia are lifted. According to the statement, provisions on Black Sea maritime security and US assistance in restoring Russia's access to global agricultural and fertilizer markets will supposedly only come into force after the following steps: lifting certain sanctions on Russia, including restrictions on Rossельхозbank and other financial institutions, which must be reconnected to SWIFT; removing restrictions on Russian food production and export companies, including seafood and fertilizer supplies; lifting bans on insurance companies dealing with food cargoes; removing restrictions on port services for Russian flagged vessels engaged in food and fertilizer trade; ending restrictions on agricultural machinery and other goods essential for food production in Russia. As we can see, Russia is once again making demands, initially agreeing to terms just to avoid being labeled as rejecting peace efforts, only to later attach conditions. This is yet another sign that sanctions are seriously impacting Russia's economy. While they publicly claim that Western sanctions don't matter to them, the moment they get a chance, they beg for at least some of them to be lifted. And Trump has confirmed that the Russians have indeed put forward their demands, saying that they will be reviewed.
They will be looking at them, and we're thinking about all of them right now. About 5 or 6 conditions. We're looking at all of them.
As we can see, Russia is being treated as a winner. Russia is the aggressor, they invaded Ukraine, and yet they continue setting conditions. And Trump is considering them instead of forcing Russia to end this war in silence. Zelensky has also commented on the situation.
And fortunately, right now, today on the very day of the negotiations, we are already seeing how the Russians are manipulating the situation. They are already trying to distort agreements and essentially deceive both our mediators and the entire world. There are completely clear statements published by the White House. Everyone can see what is written there. And then there is the Kremlin's latest lie, claiming that the ceasefire in the Black Sea depends on sanctions being lifted, and that the date for the energy truce is supposedly March 18th. Moscow always lies. And it depends on the world, on everyone who truly wants peace, whether they allow Moscow to lie again. We in Ukraine will do everything to make sure these agreements work and to prevent further attacks. But the Russians need to understand that if they continue striking, they will receive a strong response and the responsibility will be on them. And if later the Russians try to spread fairy tales claiming that their strikes were not on energy infrastructure or civilian sites, everyone will see the truth. I want to remind everyone that since March 11th, the U.S. has had an offer on the table for a complete and unconditional ceasefire everywhere, not just in the energy sector and the Black Sea. It was Russia that refused. It is Russia's position that is prolonging this war.
As we can see, Putin is stalling in every possible way, trying to drag out the war and seize as much territory as possible. Zelensky also announced the first results of the negotiations.
Everything is related to energy. We are not striking their energy infrastructure, and they are not striking ours. I think there are a million questions, honestly. That's what I believe. There will be a million questions and details, but as of today, it sounds like neither side is using weapons against each other's energy infrastructure. That's how it sounds. As for the sea, well, as I said separately, just in case, we handed over all our facilities. We provided information on which facilities we believe should not be targeted, just in case. And, as I said, we were technically very prepared. And that's exactly what happened. We were very prepared for this meeting. Regarding the sea, we are talking about maintaining silence at sea and ensuring free navigation. We are not talking about military targets they cannot move. We are talking about cargo shipping, which must continue, just as it does for us. Free navigation for civilian vessels. It's not written in great detail, believe me, in this declaration. These are the first steps, so to speak, and we'll see how it works. For example, I raised this question. Right now, we can't include the word elevator in this initial document. But what is there to transport if a missile strikes a grain elevator? The same applies to grain transport. That's why I had this question. Our side also discussed this with the American side, and they believe that silence at sea and free civilian navigation imply that port infrastructure should not be attacked.
Overall, the next few days will be decisive. If Russia doesn't keep its words and attacks continue, it will mean that negotiations have failed and they will have to be destroyed by military force. There will be no other options. Meanwhile, in the US Senate, officials admitted they had underestimated the Ukrainians.
Director Ratcliffe, ATA says continuing the Russia-Ukraine war perpetuates strategic risks to the United States of unintended escalation to large-scale war and heightened insecurity among NATO allies. What are the strategic risks to the United States if Russia were to achieve its maximalist objectives via peace agreement?
Achieve via peace agreement?
Yes.
Well, I think that clearly the negotiations that are going on reflect that President Trump is seeking a cessation of the war on terms that will end the war permanently. From an intelligence community standpoint, and specifically with regard to CIA assets, we've taken steps to support that, the president's goal of an enduring peace. To General Cruz's comments, I agree with his assessment and generally the public assessment that Russia has the battlefield advantage, is grinding forward slowly. I want to comment on that, however, to say that with regard to the Ukrainian resistance, the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian military have been underestimated for a period of several years now. And ultimately, I'm convinced from my reflections in observing from an intelligence standpoint that they will fight with their bare hands if they have to, if they don't have terms that are acceptable to an enduring peace. Obviously, to the point of maximalist goals, President Trump has communicated that he is aware of the dangers of that, of Russia getting what they want. And I think that the peace talks that are taking place would reflect, if successful, and they are making progress, that both sides would not get everything that they want and no one's maximalist goals would be achieved.
Friends, be sure to share your thoughts on this in the comments. Meanwhile, the US is trying to justify taken away Ukraine's nuclear weapons, claiming they were never actually Ukrainian. Trump's team has started pushing the message that under the Budapest Memorandum, Ukraine simply returned Russia's nuclear weapons. Richard Grenell, a special representative of US President Donald Trump, wrote about this on Twitter. Let's clarify the situation with the Budapest Memorandum. These nuclear weapons belonged to Russia and were leftovers. Ukraine returned the nuclear weapons to Russia. They didn't belong to Ukraine, he stated. Republican Senator Mike Lee reposted this tweet, adding his own comment. The nuclear weapons didn't belong to Ukraine, and there was no treaty obligating the US to follow the Budapest Memorandum. With these statements, they are trying to argue that the US owes Ukraine nothing. But this raises an obvious question. Why have such partners at all? France, share your thoughts in the comments. Meanwhile, Zelensky commented on the situation regarding the natural resources agreement.
Yesterday, my team briefed me on the New Deal. What does it look like right now? It's a large, comprehensive agreement reflecting the American side's vision of how they see it. It's a step beyond the earlier framework agreement, remember. After a framework agreement, a full agreement is developed. Now, the American side has proposed a large-scale agreement right away. They see it that way. I don't have all the details yet. I asked for a thorough review of this agreement, a breakdown of all the details, and then we will meet and assess whether this is a serious document. If it is, they will show me. And such a document will likely be refined with both sides before going to Parliament for ratification.
Overall, there are no clear agreements yet. Zelensky also stated that the issue of territory is not being discussed yet, as there is still no ceasefire. However, it seems that the topic is being raised indirectly, possibly in talks between the US and Russia.
The American side is talking to the Russians about territory. This concerns us, but look, what matters to us is that the US influences Russia, not the other way around. That is the most important thing for us. President Trump has enough tools, sanctions, and various other measures to pressure the Russians and Putin to end this war. We are concerned when discussions about us take place without us. This worries us, and we talk to our partners about it. But of course, we see and hear this in messages, in the media, in statements from officials, including those we have already discussed today, officials from the United States. So, it's clear that they are bringing up the issue of territory. There have been no agreements with us on territory. They know this is a painful issue. I've been saying this from the very beginning. I believe there are two main challenges in negotiations with Russia. First is achieving a complete ceasefire. I mentioned this even before the first meeting because Russia does not want to end this war. The second issue is territory. Russia does not want to end this war. These are two different issues but with the same root cause. That's why the dialogue will be difficult, but it will happen.
Now, let's briefly review the situation on the front line, starting with the border. In the Kursk direction, Russian forces continue their counteroffensive, launching up to 20 assaults per day. However, for now, Ukrainian forces are managing to hold the defense, and no significant changes have occurred. Meanwhile, Russian sources are claiming they are breaking through towards Sumy region. However, the Ukrainian side is not rushing to confirm any Russian advances, hoping to stabilize the situation. Nevertheless, based on geolocation maps, we can already see emerging problems in the Sumy region. In the Belgorod direction, no new advances by Ukrainian forces have been recorded. However, Russian forces are intensively shelling the entire area from which Ukrainian troops previously moved into Russian territory. Every day, numerous strikes are being carried out on settlements in the region. In the Kharkiv direction, shelling continues, but there are no offensive operations. As before, fighting is concentrated around Vovchansk. While Russian forces claim small advances, the Ukrainian side hasn't confirmed these movements, so for now we're still waiting for further developments. Now let's move to the Pokrovsk direction, where Ukrainian forces have managed to push back Russian troops and counterattacks are ongoing. The Ukrainian forces report new successes overnight. Officially, it's confirmed that Ukrainian troops have advanced toward the village of Solone and continue the attacks. Meanwhile, Russian forces are attempting to break through toward Udachne and Kotline, moving toward the outskirts of Pokrovsk, storming Lysivka and Yelizavetivka, and maintaining heavy shelling. For now, we await the outcome of Ukraine's counterattacks, but it seems the goal is to completely cut off the Russian salient and push them away from Udachne and Kotline. In the Kurakhove direction, the Russians are trying to break through toward Kotlarivka and Preobrazhenka, advancing near Troitsk and storming Konstantinopel and Rozliv. Once again, there are attempts to push toward Oleksievka, but no changes have been recorded in the past 24 hours. So far, Ukrainian forces have successfully repelled all attacks. In the direction of Velika Novosilka, Russian forces continue to storm the village of Vesele, also breaking through to Vilna Pole and are storming Novopil. However, there have been no new developments in the past 24 hours. In the Zaporizhia direction, assaults on Lobkove continue along with heavy shelling. Meanwhile, Russian military correspondents report new successes there. Russian armed forces units are advancing along the entire line of contact from Stepove to Kamensk. In the vicinity of Stepove, our assault units have advanced and improved their tactical position. The southern part of Lobkove has come under the control of airborne troops and infantry. Fighting is ongoing for a large stronghold of the Ukrainian forces northwest of Pyatakhatke, approaching Lobkove from the southwest. To the east, as reported by the Russian Ministry of Defense, Militia Baki has been completely taken under control by paratroopers. Fighting continues for Sherbaki. Our assault units are advancing from the Nesteryanka area toward Novoandriivka, which is 4.5 kilometers west of Orikhiv. We are still awaiting official confirmation from the Ukrainian side, but it seems the situation may indeed be deteriorating there. However, Zelensky stated that the situation on the front is stable.
I believe that today we are in a normal condition. Despite how hard it is, very hard, and difficult, I think our front is in decent shape today. Ideally, it would be better. There are certainly challenges, there are certainly shortages, and so on. But overall, we have made some progress. Regarding ammunition, regarding assistance, we have managed to unblock some issues. I think it's going well. Some contracts are being fulfilled, new drones are appearing, new testing ranges, all of this. I believe we are in decent shape. This is a good sign for us because we understand that the army is our guarantee of security. That's why I started with this. And that's why it's important in negotiations to when you are able to withstand blows. Yes, and that's normal.
In the Kherson direction, there have been no new attacks on the islands by Russian forces, and there have been no changes over the past 24 hours. Now let's move to the Toretsk direction. The activity remains very high here. However, the Ukrainian forces are successfully pushing back the Russians, meaning the initiative is in the hands of the Ukrainian forces, and counterattacks continue. At the same time, the Russians are trying to reclaim lost positions in Toretsk. There are battles near Krymsk, and they are storming Dachne and Delivka. But the situation here is very difficult as Russian forces have pulled in many reserves and are conducting numerous assaults. This is because it's crucial for them to recapture Toretsk. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian forces continue their counterattacks. In the Chasiv Yar direction, the activity is somewhat lower and fighting continues in the central part of the city. The Russians are also attempting to break through toward Delivka through the fields, but over the past 24 hours, they have achieved no successes and the front line remains unchanged. In the Siversk direction, the Russians are storming Bilogorivka and Verkhnyo-Kamensk. So far, the situation remains stable and the Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all attacks. In the Liman direction, assaults continue on Zarichne, Yampolivka, the village of Kolodezi, Lipove, and Novomykhailivka. The Ukrainian side hasn't yet confirmed any breakthrough by the Russians to the village of Myrne, so the front line remains unchanged. However, the Russians have already claimed to capture this village for the second time. Although there is no confirmation of this, so we are waiting for updates. In the Borova direction, attacks on Bohuslavka continue, but there have been no changes to the front line. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians are storming Petropavlivka, and there are reports of fighting near Stepova-Novoselivka. However, no new changes have been recorded over the past day, and Russian activity remains minimal. Meanwhile, Putin claimed that their army is no longer referred to as mobics, mobility reserves, and is very pleased about it.
I know that many of them have become real professional soldiers, real professionals. And no one calls them mobics anymore, and so on. They are full-fledged combat units, and they work like professionals.
However, the actual situation is far from what Putin describes. As we can see, there is a complete chaos, but the key point is that they are no longer mobics. Friends, feel free to share your thoughts on this in the comments. And that's all from me, so please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.